Iran vows retaliation after Hamas political chair Ismail Haniyeh is buried in Tehran. In Paris, are Parisians learning to love the Olympic Games? And will they ever learn to love air conditioning? I'm Andrew Muller. The Monocle Daily starts now. Hello and welcome to The Daily live from Paris. It's day 4 of our weekday residency here on the 16th floor of the Sceaux Hotel in the centre of the French capital, taken over for the next couple of weeks by Maison Allianz, the worldwide insurance partner of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. My guests Daphnée, Denis and Marie-Pierre Lannelongue will discuss the day's big stories, and we'll also hear from Yossi Meckelberg about the latest developments in the Middle East, and our letter from is a letter from somewhere quite near here. That's all coming up on the Monocle Daily, live from Maison Allianz at the Sceaux Hotel. And welcome to The Daily live from Paris. I'm Andrew Muller, and I am joined today by Daphnée Denis, Editor-in-Chief at Trax, and Marie-Pierre Lannelongue, Editor-in-Chief of M, Le Monde's Friday magazine. Hello to you both.
Hello, good evening.
Daphnée, first of all, you're back. We've heard nothing from you for years, and now it's twice in a week.
I hope you're not too bothered by it.
Well, not yet, at least not untowardly. What have you been doing with the last 48 or 72 hours, or however many it is since we last saw you?
Well, as I told you, I work for a show about underground cultures for Arte, the European broadcasting channel. So I have been working on a story about bouillon, which is a musical genre coming from Guadeloupe that gets people to dance a lot.
And Marie-Pierre, we have been asking a few guests who have visited our eyrie here on the 16th floor if they can see their house from up here. You can at least see your office, right?
Exactly. My office is just behind me. It's a new building in this new area of Paris, designed by Snoeta, the architect. And so, yes, I can see my office from here.
And your house as well, or is that further flung?
No, but my house is just down there. We can see my house from here, but it's not far. I'm so lucky. I'm one of the luckiest Parisians because I'm really live in the center of Paris and near my office.
Well, we will have more from both of you shortly, but first to the Middle East, a region arguably presently somewhat closer to the brink than usual. In Tehran, a funeral has been held for Ismail Haniyeh, former Palestinian Prime Minister and long-serving chair of the political wing of Hamas. He was killed on Wednesday by a bomb planted some months ago, according to well-sourced reports, in the guest house where he was staying while attending the inauguration of Iran's new president. While Israel has been characteristically circumspect about any involvement it may have had in the killing of Haniyeh, Israel Defense Forces have confirmed that Hamas's military chief, Mohammed Deif, was among the victims of an airstrike in Khan Younis on July 13th. Well, I'm joined now by Yossi Meckelberg, Associate Fellow with the Middle East and North Africa Programme at Chatham House in London. Yossi, first of all, this is probably a silly question, but it does need asking. Is there any doubt at all about who killed Ismail Haniyeh?
Good evening. I think that many will doubt it, but to be honest, this is the working assumption. So whatever is going to follow for this targeted assassination, the working assumption is that Israel actually carried it out. At the end of the day, you need to look at who has the motivation to do something like this, or who has the capability from intelligence point of view, from executing such an operation. And you will come probably with very few countries, and eventually you narrow it down to the most possible one, which is Israel.
All that said, Yossi, it's not really possible, is it, that Israel could have done this without some cooperation somewhere within the structures of Iran's security services? They do have people inside, clearly.
You need to have very accurate intelligence, probably from within and from without. And what we see sometimes criticism that comes from different countries, allies of Israel, of the way it, and rightly so, operates in Gaza. At the same time, there are also intelligence sharing and cooperation. And it looks like there is, and this probably will be the most unsettling thing for the regime in Iran, is to think if they manage to get to Hania, before that they got to most senior scientists and others, who are the people that share information with those who carried out this attack, and who is next.
I mean, is it possible to say, before we come to who's next, how circumscribed Hamas will be by the loss not just of Ismail Haniyeh but by Mohammed Deif? I mean, how, I guess, spread, how diversified is Hamas's power? Is it all centered in a small number of people at the top?
I think we should divide the answer to two. From the history of targeted assassinations, we know that there is always someone that comes instead. Israel assassinated Sheikh Yassin, who was the founder of Hamas, replaced by Sheikh Rantizi, that was assassinated a month later, and a different leadership emerged. So there is no reason that it won't happen again. I think what hurts Hamas more the assassination of Haniyeh, this actually can hurt more the ceasefire negotiation and the release of the hostages, is the killing of Mohammed Deif, because he is the one that Israel looked to assassinate for many years and injured him quite a few times, and he was a military commander on the ground. So in this sense, from Hamas' point of view, replacing him and some of the commander of the brigades more difficult, but it happens in any war. So that's military personnel is killed and needs to be replaced.
Yossi, we have in recent years seen Iran conduct retaliatory strikes, possibly somewhat choreographed and theatrical, but nonetheless, in response to the killings of clearly targeted individuals, Qasem Soleimani by the United States, a bunch of other Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officers in Damascus this year. Is this something to which Iran is going to feel obliged to respond, or can they realistically take the view that, okay, while this did happen in Iran, he's a Palestinian official, not an Iranian one, so it's not really our problem?
I think they will see it as their problem because it's happened while he is a guest in the inauguration or the swearing in of the new president. It was the role of the security forces in Iran to protect an ally, and Ismail and Hamas are allies of Iran, so they will probably feel that they need to retaliate. The question is between the need to retaliate or some deterrence, but also the anxiety about how to retaliate without drawing not only Israel into a full-blown war, but also with the United States, possibly with NATO. I think it's interesting, actually, what the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, said today. He said definitely going to be retaliation, and it's not going to be sort of a showpiece, as referring probably what happened in April, but at the same time, we need to avoid a full-blown war, and the way to is ending the war in Gaza. So they are trying to find a way to avoid a massive retaliation or something that will drag the region into a war, but maybe it's time to end the war in Gaza.
Well, we will, of course, be following that story across all our shows in coming days. For the moment, Yossi Mekelberg, thank you for joining us. And let's bring our panel back in now, Daphnée, Denis and Marie-Pierre Lannelongue. And there is by now a pretty established pattern of public mood about successful Olympic bids. A brief euphoria of victory gives way pretty quickly to years of whining, groaning, and indeed kvetching, to the effect that the whole thing will be a total shambles, nothing will work, it will cost an ungodly fortune, and the world will point and laugh. And then the games start, and actually it's all really pretty good fun. Such inconveniences as there are relatively minor, and the event is bathed ever after in the collective consciousness in an aura of fond, if arguably delusional nostalgia. Marie-Pierre, are we seeing that play out here? Have the French Parisians particularly spent years complaining about what is now occurring.
Years, as you can imagine, because we are specialists of complaining. We have the gold medal of that. So even beginning of July, I mean, and it was a national sport to escape the city. So from beginning of July, Paris was quite empty, and it was a bit difficult because all of the security things. But of course, it has begun like 1 week ago, and now I have friends who call me and said, "Oh, you are lucky, you are in Paris. Oh, you are going to see the escrime and different game, and oh, I regret. I think I should have stayed." That's Paris, that's France. And of course, I mean, the mood changed a lot because the city is beautiful, and they are all those medals as well. And we experiment something brand new for us, especially after the political situation in which we are, but, you know, because of the Olympics, we forget, but we are in a very big mess, big political mess. And suddenly, during 2 weeks, we forget everything, and we are proud to be French, proud to be Parisian, which is quite new. I mean, for French, it's totally new. And being proud of being French, in this case, it's okay, because with the right-wing party that we have, the Rassemblement National, of course, they pretend to be proud of being French, but what we have now, it's not the same. Not at all nationalist, I think.
And Daphnée, now that the games are underway, how far are you from painting your face in the tricolour and stomping up and down the boulevards, bellowing La Marseillaise at bewildered pedestrians?
Well, you know, I'm always very morose as a French person, so I haven't done that just yet. But maybe, who knows? No, I fully agree with that. I think the French love to hate, you know, and I think we would be very sad if there wasn't something we could complain about. So I'm happy that we got to complain about the Olympics for a while. However, very much, it is very true that the city is beautiful and that it's so nice to see people excited and to reunite. We had the football Euro right before, which also galvanized some people. And it's true that sporting events have this incredible capacity at making people feel united, even at a moment when we're very divided. So it's actually quite nice. And obviously, you know, whenever a competition like this happens in a country, the country does better in general. So we are seeing that, and people are getting excited, of course.
But Marie-Pierre, I am one of those irregular visitors to France who is, I think, as bewildered by most visitors to France, because if you read about France from afar and you follow France's news, as I do in my job, and it is just this incessant montage of people hurling paving slabs at the gendarmes over whatever it is they're upset about this week, and then you come to Paris or really anywhere in France and think, this is nice. What's everyone so upset about?
But you know that. I mean, you are a journalist. You know what media is. Of course. I mean, those things are here, of course. But most of the time, you can walk in the street being very calm and, you know, go to a terrace and spend times. Of course. I mean, this is not everything about France. But what is important, I think, with all those strikes and all those problems, what does it mean? It means something of our country.
I mean, there is a quote you're probably familiar with, Daphnée, attributed to the travel writer Sylvain Tesson, that France is a paradise inhabited by people who think they're in hell. Do you think that's an accurate description? And I guess further to that, is buying into that mentality actually part of the fun of being French? You
know, he actually got in quite a bit of trouble this year, so I don't even know if we can quote him as a you know, authority at France. No, I mean, I think this is true, and I think we have this I remember a New York Times article about why are the French so depressed? Like, what's wrong with them? I don't have an answer to that, but it's true that I don't think we're depressed. I think we're very critical, but at the same time, you know, I will tell you that living abroad for a long time as a correspondent, I could complain about France, but nobody else gets to complain about France. Nobody else gets to say that my country is not great. I get to say it, but they can't. So I think if there was negative coverage of the Olympics abroad, we would be so mad. We would be so mad because it's our little thing. We get to hate France. Nobody else gets to. And so we're very happy that you think it's very nice here.
But Marie-Pierre, what have you thought as somebody who did stay? Are your peers and friends who left right to be envious? Have you been enjoying Paris during the Olympics so far?
A lot. Yes.
You sound surprised.
Yes, because when I say to my friends that I was supposed to stay during the Olympics, they thought that Le Journal Le Monde obliged me to do that, and actually not. I mean, I had the choice. But yes, I'm very surprised, and I am on a bike and passing through the Tuileries and seeing this Vasque in the navy blue sky of Paris. I mean, it's once in a lifetime, I think. It's once in a century, the Olympics, and probably once in my lifetime. So, yes, I'm really happy.
Because, Daphnée, I know it's very hard to tell at this stage what lasting effect an event like this might have on a country, but certainly the two relatively recent Olympic Games that have occurred in two cities I know well, Sydney 2000, London 2012, they do now kind of, they're sort of the sun at the centre of this universe of weird lachrymose sentimental nostalgia. There's now, people have come out the other way, especially in London. There is a certain class of Remain voting metropolitan liberal who thinks it's been all downhill since the opening ceremony of 2012. Can you imagine maybe, I don't know, there could potentially be here something else for the French to complain about in subsequent years, that nothing again has ever been as good as it was in the summer of 2024?
I don't know if they will say that, but I think they'll definitely resume complaining on August 11th, like 100%. Like there's no doubt about it. We're waiting. We're like taking notes, and once August 11th hits, we'll be like, okay, so I didn't talk about this. This was an issue. This was an issue too. I think we're very ready. And as Marie-Pierre said, we are in the middle of political mayhem.
We don't have a prime minister. We lack a true prime minister out of the election. So, of course, on the 12th, we will be ready to complain again.
And to protest, of course.
Of course.
Well, we'll move on to a related subject, because if there is one thing that visitors to the Paris Olympics could be said to be learning the hard way, it is that Paris, to a degree now unusual, appears municipally resistant to the notion of air conditioning. Unless, of course, Paris was thoroughly air-conditioned until this time last week, and they've just taken it all out to annoy the tourists. But in a scorching hot first Olympic week, it has been a recurrent topic of bewildered discussion, even in the Olympic Village, which abjured air conditioning in a bid to befriend the climate, and where those athletes able to bring their own units are reportedly igniting jealousy in those who cannot. Marie-Pierre, what basically is the deal with this? Why are Parisians so resistant to air conditioning?
By growing up in the south of France, in a very hot city, Toulouse, we were just used to open the windows, close the windows, open the curtains, close the curtains at night, in the morning. So air conditioning was a relatively late discover for me. I'm 55, and I suppose the first time I experiment huge air conditioning was by traveling in the US and in Asia. And it was quite an experience for me to be in a Frigidaire and then going out in the very heat things. So, but now we are a modern country, so I suppose that we have air conditioning in most of the places. No,
I would say I think people still consider it as a luxury for their homes,
Oui.
But at work, in places like this, obviously, like in this hotel, there is air conditioning. That said, I think it's quite it's not only Parisian, actually. I was in Marseille 2 weeks ago. I was staying in a house. It was very hot. There was no air conditioning. And I was staying with American friends who freaked out. They were like, what is wrong with you? And at the same time, they make fun of me because when I stay in the US, in a hotel with air conditioning, I get sick. This is a very true French thing. We do not, we can't take it. We don't like it. Emily in Paris made jokes about it. We don't like air conditioning. And we're on the right side of history here. Like, it's better for the environment. So.
Well, I will say I have been pleasantly surprised by my own lodgings, which I'm sharing with the producer of this program, Tom Webb. We were given very strict instructions by the people from whom we've rented it that, it will be fine as long as you shut all the windows, curtains and shutters during the day, which I confess I was sceptical of, but it turns out they're entirely right.
That is the French way.
The European way. I suppose
true,
that's
yeah.
the same for Italy or Spain.
But is it a bit much, though, do you think, the thing with the Olympic Village? Are you sympathetic to those athletes who are only going to be here for 2 weeks and who need a good night's sleep, I imagine?
Yeah, I understand. I totally understand. It's stupid, actually, especially because we know that those people, they need a good sleep, you're right, and they come from different parts of the world. They are not used to what we have here in France.
Yeah, I read, so now apparently they're like sort of they're giving like AC units on a sort of case-by-case basis when you ask. But I think I read a beautiful piece where, some athletes from very hot countries said, no, we're used to this, it's fine. And then obviously others are outraged. I think obviously, like, for athletes who need to sleep, you can't put them through a terrible night in scorching heat. Of course not.
I mean, this may end up being, Marie-Pierre, something that Parisians can complain about after the Olympics, because the idea, of course, is that the Olympic Village will be actual housing for people to live in. Do you think there is an idea that they're going to be somehow cooled by some sort of environmentally friendly apparatus, but will it be a thing where people are reluctant to live in them because of this?
Well, I don't know. I think we will remain reluctant to air conditioning, yes.
Plus, it's like, so far, obviously, global warming is happening, but so far, Paris does not get that hot. Like, it gets hot now, and then in September it's over. So I think we still consider it to be a luxury. I think we like fans, we've got systems, shutters. We have systems. We have la débrouille, it's called.
And faire un courant d'air.
Yeah, we open the windows.
Ouais, we open the windows.
Revolutionary concept.
We opened the windows from years and years and years, and especially in the south of France. You mentioned Marseille, and of course it's getting hotter and hotter, and the summers are crazy in Paris now. But it's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Well,
but it will be perhaps worse in the coming years, of course.
Well, just finally then, I'll ask you each in turn, you first, Daphnée, because there will doubtless be people listening to this who, though they may not be in Paris this summer, they will be in Paris one summer. What's your advice of a thing to do in Paris when it is actually really properly hot?
Oh, wow.
I was teeing you up here, Daphnée, to talk about ice cream, which is something I know you enjoy doing and have very firm opinions about.
100%, it's true. I told you to go to Bertillon, which is very close, because it's an institution. Of course, ice cream. Go for ice cream. Maybe don't go bathe in the Seine just yet. But there are actually, outside of Paris, lots of places where you can go for a swim, Fontainebleau, lots of suburban places. And there's lots of swimming pools, and you can find a few hotels and cafes with air conditioning if you really, really need to do that.
And just to focus on the ice cream thing a bit further, is there one ice cream particular variety from one particular proprietor you would recommend? They might hear this and send you a large quantity of free stuff.
Okay, fine. You're using private information that I gave you, but fine. Yes, I recommend the olive oil ice cream at Fol des Rolles, which is a bar that serves natural wine and ice cream, and is my favorite place in the whole of Paris.
Of course, she's right. Definitely.
Okay, well, that's clearly part of your tip for what to do on a hot day, but beyond the olive oil ice cream?
I think get up very early, go in the street very early, stay in the place where you stay, either flat or from midday to 5, and then go out at 6. And in the meantime, go to the cinema or to the museum.
Excellent advice. Marie-Pierre, Lannelongue and Daphnée, Denis, thank you both for joining us. Finally, on today's Daily Live from Paris, it is time for our weekly letter from somewhere. And this week it hasn't come far, or at least we've sort of met it halfway.
The streets were jam-packed. People were cheering wildly as they caught a glimpse of their heroes, even threatening to get in their way. Such was their excitement. Across the world screens, France brilliantly showed us all how to put on a proper sporting show. But I'm not talking about the Olympics. It was the final stage of the Tour de France, for the first time in its history being held outside of Paris. Nice played host, the final wild kilometres drawing the competitors at terrifying speed down hairpin bends above Monaco to a brilliant finish on the Promenade des Anglais. We'd had the fireworks the night before, and tonight we were treated to the Patrouille de France, the French red arrows, flying overhead in the colours of the tricolour. Goodness gracious, this was good stuff. The Olympics, on the other hand, had yet to prove their worth. A few days later, we attempted to get to the football, an Olympic opening round between Guinea and New Zealand at the Stade de Nice. Well, without doing too much disservice to the two teams, this perhaps was not the match we'd all put our lives on hold for. But who cared? It was a chance to taste some Olympic action and get in the mood. It was when we'd driven past the stadium for the third time, twice in the wrong direction and once with a 10-kilometre detour, that we realised that this was going to be quite the job. Because apart from a slightly coy pink and lilac sign on the side of the stadium, you'd have no idea this country was just about to play host to the greatest games on earth. There were plenty of roundabouts and split-second driving decisions to make, but there were no signs anywhere. There was a police officer, so we stopped to ask for help, and he took more time to put his hat on than to tell us he had no idea what we were trying to get to. There were 3 people in high-vis gilets, baking under the sun at a traffic light. They would get us into the stadium, surely. But it was hot, and there were lots of cars. Instructions for left and right became muddled, and the traffic lights just kept changing. So off we rolled again, and once again in the wrong direction. We ended up with a parking spot at the local supermarket. There was a bit of clambering over hot grass verges and the odd deadly sprint across the dual carriageway. But again, who cared? This was the Olympics after all, the birthplace of the challenge. But we seemed to be the only ones there at the start. After a few minutes, we spotted a couple of retiree volunteers with the obligatory giant foam pointy hands. They were working up half a sweat as they directed us towards a near-empty stadium. Even the volunteer on the door didn't seem to know what was happening, but she was enjoying her cigarette. But who cared? This had been a triumph over heat, traffic, smoking breaks. Surely we deserved a beer.
Beer.
Except the event was dry. You could get off your head on a litre of fizzy caffeinated pop, but woe betide you enjoyed a drink or try to pay with anything except a Visa card. Furthermore, the place was so darned empty, you could sit where you like. No need to be bunched up against your rivals. This was all as flat as the non-alcoholic beer on serve. But then the match began. Guinea and New Zealand were oblivious to the fact that half the spectators were like us, clueless families on holidays. They went at it with their ears back and fired everybody up. Who knew I cared so passionately about Guinea having a goal disallowed or New Zealand missing a penalty? This is what it was all for. But if only France could see this great gift it currently held in its hands. As we entered the first week of the Paris Games, we were being warned to brace ourselves for an empty city whose residents had all cleared off. But, as the French journalist Agnès Parrier told me earlier, it was the grumpy Parisians who fled, and it left us with a clean, bright and energised capital, full of smiles from both Parisians and tourists alike. Everything has gone well, and no more so than at the events themselves. A week after our Nice slump, I was back at another Olympic football match. In searing, stifling heat, we crammed ourselves into a packed Parc des Princes to celebrate another random encounter. But this time I was screaming for Mali as they were squished by Paraguay. I was among among the thousands of people who'd seen Celine Dion at the opening ceremony, felt the buzz, and were desperate to be part of things. So France, you did it. You put your cigarette out, you put the signs up, you more than rose to the occasion, and you made the greatest sporting event on the earth something very French. Merci.
And thank you, Emma Nelson. That is all for this edition of the Monocle Daily live from Paris. A big thanks to our panellists today, Daphnée, Denis and Marie-Pierre Lannelongue. Today's show was produced in Paris by Tom Webb, and our sound engineer was Steph Chungu, and in London, Sarah Nichol. Special thanks to Carlotta Rebello, Laura Kramer and Gunnar Grunled. I'm Andrew Muller here in Paris. The Daily returns at the same time tomorrow, live from Maison Allianz at the Soho Hotel. Thanks for listening.